This episode of Fishing with Tyler brought to you by Powell Fishing Rods, Yeti Coolers, wildly stronger, keep ice longer, Hoorag, the better bandana, EcoPro Tungsten, STORMR, defy the elements, jacked baits, NITRO Performance Bass Boats. Hey guys, another beautiful day here in Southern Ohio, January 30th, and it is absolutely beautiful. It's about 60 degrees outside, which is, it's absolutely absurd. If you look around us here, there's still actually some snow on the ground around. So that's melting off pretty quick. But I've got a lot of questions in the past couple months about what kind of action cameras, what kind of cameras I use to shoot the videos when Kyle and I are fishing. So I figured I'd take this opportunity to show you guys a little bit about what I've learned over the past few years filming our actual fishing tournaments and stuff. The gear that I use actually is all GoPro stuff. Right here is a GoPro Hero 4 Black. But in order to really understand what type of camera you'd like to have, the first thing you need to know about is what's actually known as resolution. Let's look at the different types of resolution. One of the first things we have to look at is what is actually a pixel. It's known as a picture element. A pixel is nothing more than a dot on a screen. If you think about red, green, or blue, it's at least one of those colors. Each one of those dots is known as a pixel. So when you're talking about resolution, one thing you have to look at is the actual dots per inch. With WVGA, you have 848 by 480 dots per inch. 720p is 1280 by 720. And then you're going to jump up to what's known as 960p, which is 1280 by 960. And then you're going to jump up to 1080p, which is 1920 by 1080. Then you're going to jump up to 1440p, which is 1920 by 1440. And then it goes up to 2.7K, which is 2716 by 1524. And then last but not least, 4K, which is 3840 by 2160. Those are all pixels per inch. Okay, now that we have an idea what resolution is, let's look at some of the features of GoPro. Of each GoPro that I have here that may or may not sway your options as far as buying a GoPro. Again, check out some of the other action cameras on the market. These are just the two that I use mainly. I'm actually looking into into the Garmin side of things. So I'm kind of interested to see what they have to offer. But again, I've had this question asked a ton. For somebody that's never owned a GoPro or somebody that's wanting a GoPro, they say, Tyler, what GoPro do I need to buy? Well, first and foremost, I'm going to give you the pros and cons of both GoPros that I have. We're going to start out with the most high-end GoPro that they make. This right here is the GoPro Hero 4 Black Edition. You can see here that it is nothing fancy on the front. It just says Hero 4. Has the power. This is the power button. Also the menu button over here. You have a start and stop button up here on the left-hand side. You also have on this side here, you have a, tough to see there, there we go. You have a little button there that allow you to go into the settings as well. But on the other side, if you're looking at the lens away from you, like it'd be pointed towards you, on the left-hand side, there's a little door here The door thing comes totally off, which I'm not a huge fan of. I've lost one of these already. I ended up having to buy another one. The reason they're there is one, to keep dust and stuff out of the slots of the camera. And they are, in no particular order there. At the very top, there is a HDMI, a mini HDMI port there on the very top. And what that allows you to do is to plug it into a TV or play your video directly to something that has an HDMI input. Directly below that is a micro USB, a mini USB connector. That allows you to, one, charge the battery when it's in here, or two, you can use it to get your files off of your micro SD card. And that's what that bigger, smaller, the wider slot there is for a micro SD. And again, this little door just kind of covers all those ports. And what that's for, it's for dust, keeping dust and stuff out of there. That does not mean that this is waterproof, guys. I have both of these GoPros out of the waterproof housings just for the simple fact that it's easier to show you. GoPros are not, natively waterproof. They have to have the waterproof housing. So keep that in mind. You can use these things without the housing and actually get better audio quality just from the GoPro as opposed to being in the waterproof container. The biggest thing about GoPros are the fact that on the bottom here you have the battery door. It slides open and then out, and then in here there's a little tab on all the batteries that you can actually pull the battery out. I have several of these. Matter of fact, I have 10 batteries. They've came down in price since I bought them. They were about 30 bucks a piece when I bought them. Now I think you can pick them up for about 18 bucks. I seen them on Walmart yesterday. So these batteries are lithium ion, and if you have all these batteries like I do, you can only charge one battery at a time while they're in the GoPro. For example, if I take this battery, put it back in here, shut the door, and plug that on the side here, if I open the door and plug it into the mini USB port into my computer or into a charging brick, it actually will charge the battery that's within this thing. Well, when you got 8 or 10 batteries like I do, you can see here's 2 more. Here's a couple more. I got a ton of batteries. So what I did, I went out and bought some cheap regular, you plug them into your 110 outlet at your house, but they charge 3 GoPro Hero 4 batteries up at a time. I hear a lot of people talking about no-name charging stuff not working well and it destroys your battery. I am not here to talk about that stuff. I've used this thing for a solid year and haven't had any kind of battery malfunction or overheating issues or anything like that. So this, I can speak for the Power 2000 here. I got this from B&H Photo, but it does charge those 3. I have 2 of those chargers, so you can see that I can charge. Theoretically, if I plug both of my cameras in, I can charge 8 batteries at one time. That leaves me 2 batteries to have to charge later. So that's the biggest thing when it comes to GoPros, is that you need to understand that they do not last forever as far as the battery. The batteries usually last between 1.5 hours to 2 hours, depending on what resolution video you're shooting. But with that being said, one, have some extra batteries on hand. Second off, this is what's known as the battery backpack. This is made by GoPro. I don't know that there's any other companies that make them. You can see down here on this end here, it's tough to see there in the lighting. But that is a little LCD screen that shows you the amount of battery pack battery life that's still in this battery backpack. The reason they call it a battery backpack is because GoPros have this little locking mechanism here. You can attach this thing and then it actually just pushes right in. And then it makes a connection. That doubles your battery life, if not more. With a battery backpack and a fully charged battery, I'm getting at least 4 hours worth of video. Sometimes 5, sometimes 6 hours, depending on the temperature. If it's nice and warm outside, you're going to get more out of a video as far as with one battery, as opposed to if it's really cold. Cold has a negative effect on batteries, so they don't say charge as long. With these battery backpacks, you can see that they add quite a bit of depth to the GoPro. They also add a little bit of weight. One thing about it is when you buy these battery backpacks, they already come with a back door that you put on the back of that waterproof enclosure that actually gives it enough room to close this up and make it waterproof. I'm not sure about the price on these things. I figured they were probably about 50 bucks when I bought them. But this GoPro in question right here again is the GoPro Hero 4 Black Edition. I want you to notice one thing on the back here. There's nothing more than a piece of black plastic on the back of it. You know, it's all one piece housing here. But when we get into the GoPro Hero Silver, you'll see in just a second what I'm talking about, how it changes the difference. The difference between this GoPro and this GoPro here, which is the GoPro Hero 4 Silver Edition, is the fact that this thing will shoot 4K video, which we just talked about in the resolution part of this video, at 30 frames a second. When you got back into the Hero 3s, I think the Hero 3s would actually shoot 4K video, but they would only shoot at 15 frames a second, which is, if it was still and you wanted to shoot a big panoramic video of like a mountain scene or something, that would be okay. But if you're trying to catch any kind of action, 15 frames a second is not going to do it. This thing has been bumped up to actually getting 30 frames a second at 4K resolution. Whereas the GoPro Hero 4 Silver Edition only films, the highest resolution it can hit is 1080p at 60 frames a second. So, you know, that's what I use 100% of the time anyway, so that's why I bought one of these, because this right here was $399 without the battery pack or any kind of accessories. Now, that's not talking, you know, that's 0 micro SDs, that's one battery that comes with it, plus the waterproof housing. So you're looking at $400 for this thing here. Now, if you look at the GoPro Hero 4 Silver Edition here, one of the main things I want you to see is the fact that there is an LCD back here. Let me turn this thing on so you can see it. You can see that power up there, and you can actually use it for a viewfinder. That is one of the biggest things that I've seen with this GoPro Hero Silver, GoPro Hero 4 Silver, that I absolutely love. The fact is that you can point this thing, use it like that to actually see what's going on, make sure you have the angle framed correctly. Because the last thing we want to do is catch a big 7, 8, 10 pound bass, and we're trying to get it on footage or on film anyway, and then all of a sudden we go back and look at the GoPro and it's pointed way totally off, you know, the other side of the boat, and we only got bits and pieces of it. So that allows you to actually frame the shot really well. This thing is actually touchscreen, so you have to press and hold it down to actually see the LCD there. You can see, if I can get it to, so you can see that it actually is, you know, live video there. You can play video on this. You can delete video. You can also, these things are Wi-Fi enabled, so you can go in there and actually turn them on from any smart device, Android or iPhone as well. But that's one of the biggest things that I enjoy about this GoPro Hero 4 Silver, is the fact that it does have this LCD on the back of it that allows me to not only see what I'm filming, to make sure that I've got everything filming and ready to, you know, nice and neat as far as filmed where it needs to be filmed, but I can also watch the video from there. Another big thing that I would have to say about the GoPro Hero 4 Silver is the fact, even shooting at 1080p with 60 frames a second, just like I shoot with the Black Edition, this Silver Edition battery power lasts almost twice as long. I've updated the firmwares and everything on this GoPro Hero 4 Black Edition. I've contacted GoPro several times. They basically said that's, you know, one of the things about having 4K video on there, that the battery life is a little bit smaller, you know, a little bit lower. They downplay it a little bit. My opinion that this thing is probably, I would say, almost half as long as you can get out of this GoPro Hero 4 Silver with a battery backpack. There's been several times, especially in the summertime when it's really nice and warm, that I've only had to change the battery on this GoPro Hero Silver one time the entire 8 to 10 hour period that I'm fishing a tournament, which makes it a huge, huge factor. One, you're not always wondering if your GoPro's on or if you're getting footage or whatever, but a lot of times if I was filming with this camera, I was constantly looking at the camera and making sure that it was still filming. I was constantly making sure that the battery was up and going. So when I'm doing that, when I'm looking over at the GoPro, I'm turning around, I'm taking my eye and taking my attention off the bait that I'm fishing, you know, and I'm there to catch fish. So with the GoPro Hero 4 Silver, it allows me to fish a lot longer without having to change the battery. So if I were going to pick either of these GoPros, again, the GoPro Hero 4 Black Edition, GoPro Hero 4 Silver Edition, I would without a doubt buy 2 of these cameras and get rid of this one. Still have a little bit of money left over. These things are $299. And sometimes you can find these silver editions with a package that actually comes in, and it'll have like a micro SD card with it, maybe an extra battery. You just have to, basically shop around. There are companies out there, B&H Photo, I do a lot of business with. Check eBay, you can check Amazon, stuff like that. You're going to find people that have deals on this stuff. But if I were going to choose one camera and some accessories to buy, I would definitely buy the GoPro Hero 4 Silver. That gives you the LCD on the back. It also, it still has the functionality to have the backpack on here. One thing I want you to understand is all GoPro Hero 4 accessories are interchangeable. You can see here that I'm plugging that into the black edition. Then I'm going to grab the silver edition here, same battery backpack, and there they are. They both fit in there. So I have two of those GoPros. I have two battery backpacks. Also, when you have these battery backpacks connected to the GoPro here, you can plug the micro SD or the mini USB port into the camera, and it actually will charge the battery in the camera and the battery backpack as well. So you're doing double duty there, getting those two charged up. But again, if I were going to look at accessories in the GoPro that I would recommend, I would definitely go with the GoPro Hero Silver because it is a lot more efficient as far as battery power goes. Also, you get the LCD, as I mentioned a second ago. Again, both of these are Wi-Fi enabled, so you can stop them. You can actually send video to YouTube and places like that from the smartphone app. But one of the biggest things people look over when it comes down to accessories when they're wanting to film anything with GoPros as opposed to fishing, it could be any kind of action sport, is this right here. And if I can get the camera to zoom in there, that is nothing more than a 64 gig SanDisk Extreme micro SD card. You guys probably have all seen SD cards in the past. They look just like this right here. This is a normal size SD card. This is a SanDisk Extreme regular SD card. I brought this out just to show you guys the difference. This is actually used for the GoPro Hero 2 that I have. They actually took full-size SD cards. Now what's happening is the newer devices are going to this smaller platform, which is basically the exact same thing. It is flash media, just like the other stuff, except it's a lot smaller. Again, this is a 32 gig card. This is a 64 gig card. You can see the difference in the size. However, this small one is actually double the storage capacity of that regular SD card. When you're buying an SD card, do not, and I repeat, do not buy an SD card that is the cheapest thing on the shelf. You will regret it from the day one that you buy it. You need to find something that has a really good bits per second rate that will allow it to transfer data from your camera onto the card. Guys, if you're getting lag if it's lagging getting onto the SD card, you're going to get the video is going to either stop and then be really jumpy before it catches back up, or sometimes it may stop totally and not allow you to continue on recording. So if you're going to buy a GoPro and you want to get really good results out of it, make sure you buy a good micro SD card. There are several of them out there. There's hundreds of different manufacturers. I choose SanDisk because I've never had any problems with them. But again, if you want to put this thing in a camera, you're going to open the door up just like you would, pop that thing off. You're going to fit this micro SD card in there. There's only one way that it'll go in, but if you notice here that it's kind of sticking up, you'll know if you have it installed, it's spring loaded. You have to push it. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but when it clicks, you know that it's actually in there. You see that it's flush into the SD card slot there, so that I know that it's in there. I can actually put the door back on there with an SD card in it, which is a pretty handy deal. However, again, keep in mind these things can be lost, these doors. If you lose it, it's not a big deal. You're just going to get dust in the ports, which can be detrimental to it. But if you see there now, in the same way, it's spring loaded again. When you push it in, it'll bounce back up there until you can actually get a hold of it. And then grab it and you can pick it out and put in another SD card. So again, you need a GoPro camera of some sort. I would recommend going with the GoPro Hero Silver. You're going to need, I'm going to say multiple of these, even if you're using just one camera, or you can buy bigger ones. For example, I have one here that I use all the time that is actually it's super big, and I don't know that I can get it to focus there on that, but it's actually 128 gigabytes on this little very small micro SD card. This 128 gig micro SD card will allow me to, at minimum, a 2-day tournament, film 1 whole day and a half, shooting at 1080p, 60 frames a second. Sometimes, depending on the weather, again, it could last an entire 2 days. But a lot of times people say, you know, how do I get my files from my GoPro to my computer, and what happens then? Well, first off, you need to actually go in and figure out what kind of computer you're going to be editing this with. Guys, let's face it, if you're in, you know, trying to put these videos together, they don't just fall together. It's not something that you can go out and just learn in 5 minutes how to put these videos together. I'm still learning. Matter of fact, I've been putting videos together like this for about 5-6 years now, and I'm still constantly learning new stuff that actually allows me to make my videos look a little better. But go out to your computer and figure out what kind of you know, ports and stuff that are available on your computer. For example, 99% of all computers manufactured from like 99 till today at least have one USB port, and since USB is such interchangeable anymore, you're going to find something that has probably, you know, I have a computer that has like 12 USB ports on it, and I'm not kidding you. Because, you know, mice are USB, you have keyboards USB, you have printers USB, there's pretty much anything is USB. One, because it works. Two, because it is very easy to plug and unplug. This right here is nothing more than a Targus, which was bought at Walmart, as standard SD adapter. It has a USB port on one end of it, and then you put a regular size SD card in the back of it. Well, notice that we are not using SD cards anymore. We're using micro SD cards, but that's what makes these things so good. When you buy these SanDisk micro or the micro SD cards, they always come with one of these micro SD to regular SD adapters. You can see at the top of there, it actually pulls right directly out of there and allows you to adapt it to an SD card. So one of these things is about 10 bucks at Walmart. I bought it off Walmart.com, I believe, and it was a lot cheaper than that. But that allows you to get it connected to your computer. Let's just say, okay, I don't really want to do that route. I don't want to go that route. You can, directly from this camera, plug in a mini USB cable into that bottom port there next to the micro SD card, and plug it into your computer and get direct access from this to the micro SD card. Sometimes I find that these things, especially the Silver Edition, isn't as fast as you could just dragging it off on this thing, so that's why I choose to use this thing. However, you do not actually need that. You know, they always come with a mini USB to USB-A cord, so you can plug it in here, plug it into a computer, and it comes up. Well, you actually have to turn it on. When you turn it on, it'll come up just like a drive would in your computer. When you go to computer, it'll show up as a drive. It'll say GoPro. You can double click on that, and then in there, within a folder, there'll be two different folders. One, if you've taken any still shots with this, or two, there'll be I believe it's called MPEG folder. That will, when you open it up, it will actually show you all the videos that you've shot. Keep in mind, guys, video is very, very intensive on a hardware system. So if you've got a really old computer, and you know, when I say really old, I say within the last 7-8 years, if you haven't bought it within that area, you may be barking up the wrong tree, because I actually work on a system that right around just hardware alone, the cost is about $5,000. So, you know, it's just like anything else. If you're patient enough, you can do it with a 20-year-old computer. However, you're going to get on there and you're going to get frustrated. So make sure you have enough equipment and you have the right equipment. You have a decent computer, you can plug this thing in, you can actually download your videos, and then start editing the videos. I'm going to go into, you know, not this video, it's already getting quite lengthy and I feel like I'm sitting here babbling, but in a few other episodes here down the line, I'm kind of bored waiting on the springtime, but I'll show you guys some of the techniques of mine when editing some of these videos together. I use Sony Vegas Pro 13. That is a, you know, super high-end NLE, what is called non-linear editing software. The reason I use that is because it's available to me. GoPro, the software that comes with GoPros works just great. You can actually download a video, pull it into that software program, edit the video, render it out, and actually put it on YouTube wherever you want. You can make transitions, you can do whatever. But just for this video, we're going to stop here. Again, make sure if you're in the market for GoPro, make sure you figure out what type or what kind of resolution that you want to shoot at. My recommendation is going to be 1080p at 60 frames a second. Why 60 frames a second? You can slow down video quite a bit and get really smooth slow motion footage as opposed to shooting at 30 frames a second or even at 24p. And 1080p definitely gives you plenty of resolution to see all the little fine details, especially from a GoPro. Guys, these cameras are super awesome for what they are, but when you look at the difference between the quality of this and such as the Canon XA20 that I'm shooting with behind here, you can tell the reason I'm not shooting with a GoPro is because I don't like the quality of it that well. You know, suction cupping it on the back of a motor and fishing for 8 to 10 hours, these things are hard to beat. You know, they work, they're awesome. You know, one other thing I could mention is if you come up with some kind of, they make poles and stuff that you can put these things on, as far as like your navigation light pole. If once it gets daylight enough to take your navigation pole down, this thing fits down in the hole of where the navigation pole would go, and it allows it to power it all day long. It has a couple USB ports on there, you plug it into them. One thing about that is you have to use what's known as the frame with these, and they are not waterproof at that point. So if you get a 100%, you know, bright sunny day and you don't have to worry about any kind of, you know, precipitation at all, whether that be rain, snow, moisture is a big deal. If it's really cold in the morning and really hot in the afternoon, that transition period there is going to create some moisture and is not good for electronics. However, if you're going to be fishing in the evening or in the morning, is, you know, summertime, it's really hot, I'd recommend buying one of those poles. I don't have one right now because they're about 250 bucks. But when you think about it, if I have $30 batteries, I got 10 of those, that's 300 bucks there. So, you know, kind of hindsight is 20/20. But if you guys have any questions, comment on this post here below, and I will try to answer any questions I have that you guys may have. But in my opinion, go with the GoPro Hero 4 Silver because the battery life's a lot longer. It also has the LCD screen, and it does shoot at 1080p, 60 frames a second, which the GoPro Black does also, except this one shoots at 4K. I've had this for about a year now, and I'm going to tell you the honest truth is I've never shot the first video at 4K. One, it takes more than double the amount of storage to store a one 4K video as opposed to, you know, several 1080p at 60 frames a second resolution. Also, if you're using this thing more and more like that, you're going to be draining the battery even quicker, and as I said before, this GoPro Hero 4 Black is terrible on the battery side of things compared to this silver, so that's one thing I would stay away from. Also, they do make sure that if you have a smartphone, you download the app, you link it to these things, and you can actually control these from your smartphone, and it's a lot nicer. They do beep if the battery's going dead. If you hear them beeping, they will not beep if the battery's low. If you hear it beeping, that means that it's shutting down. You need to go put a new battery in it, change the battery backpack, what have you. There are lights all over this thing. There's two on the front. One's a blue one that will tell you that it's Bluetooth active, which means you can actually connect to it with your phone. The second one is a red light. It blinks to let you know that the camera is actually functioning and is recording. You can turn both of those off, or definitely the recording light off. There's one here on top. There's one on the back of the battery pack. Pretty much any angle that you look at this, there's one on the very bottom. When you have this thing recording, all those lights are flashing. Well, when you think about it, all those lights are flashing. They're just telling you that, one, the camera is recording, which you should already know, and two, you should already put together that that thing is draining battery. So I would definitely go into the settings and turn the recording light totally off. I do like keeping the beep on there. That way, you know, if I'm fishing, I don't have to worry about it. I can just hear the thing beep and go off. I can then go back and get some other battery and put it in there. One thing that I will tell you is it does beep when the SD card is full too, so you have to keep in mind with that. give it a second and check it out, see what's going on. It could be the battery going dead. It could be the SD card is full. If the SD card's full here on this LCD on the front of the camera, it'll actually say full. So then you're just going to put a new SD card in there. So buy you a couple SD cards, buy you a couple extra batteries, a couple backpacks, the battery backpack, and go with the GoPro Hero 4 Silver in my opinion. If you have any other questions, let me know, guys. I'll try to keep you guys in the loop. Thanks.